There we go. So today's the first part or first day of 2 days, two blocks, regardless, of our unit project. And the project itself is in lesson 13. I was right. And you should be able to get to it now. There are two bubbles, which I realize it says that day one you are going to do with a partner. No, this entire thing is an individual project. Okay, do not be confused by code.org's instructions. That is not our situation. But this is where you're going to do the work for this project. There are two bubbles and they both are the same. It doesn't matter. Well, just go ahead and put it in bubble two. Actually, no, it doesn't matter because whichever one I look at, it should carry over. So yeah, I don't think that matters. The planning guide, which is part of one of the assignments of this project, and it is the same workflow as Google Doc projects or assignments in the past, where you need to complete it. Well, open it up, make a copy, name, date, and period is a good thing to add. And when you're done with it, you're going to submit it to the already existing assignment with the same name. And that is due today. Today is the due date for that. So let's get started. So we're just planning our app. The point of the app is to make something that traverses something from one of the data sets. So really your first job is to go to the dataset tab and figure out something that it helps if it interests you, but it's certainly not the first thing on your decision hierarchy. Something that has I don't want to say obvious use, but a very clean and straight path to completion. All right, we're worried about getting things done, jumping through the hoops, getting the check marks more than making sure the topic is something you love, which would be a bonus, but it's certainly not the point. And the app needs to be something like things we've done, where you use at least one of the lists and you do some sort of looping through it or filter it. And we have plenty of examples of that further on this. Okay, the three things you're going to submit: the actual app in App Lab, this planning guide, and then there's one more Google Doc assignment, the wrap up written response. Okay, requirements: at least 3 screens. Okay, a title screen with a start button is an easy one screen for you to include. Generally, some sort, if you're doing a filtering, one screen for where the user has an input and then have it go to another screen where it shows the output is another easy way to do this. Might not be the most exciting, but it certainly would meet the requirements. Okay, data set used in a meaningful way, and at least one of the lists needs to be we'll talk about map, reduce, or filter. It's almost definitely going to be filtering. Filtering is what we've done so far. We haven't done any sort of changing each element of a list, and it's not, I don't know, it would count, but filtering is pretty much what all the examples are doing, and reducing is finding something from the list that you want, but filtering is probably the way to go. And at least one list is traversed. Okay, you need these things in order to create really any app. Variables, functions, conditionals, lists and loops. Okay. The list, well, the list you're bringing in and the filter list, if you're filtering, which almost everyone is. I mean, every example we have from this unit uses all those, so that shouldn't be hard. Okay, functions, comment your functions. Say what they do, and just a single line comment above your function definitions. Okay, when we say comment your functions, we mean, by we, I mean I, but we, it's just a single line comment above the function definition. Calculates blah blah. Okay, and that is what I mean by comment your functions. Okay, element IDs have meaningful and descriptive names, specifically elements that have any sort of code around them. The yeah, so as per usual, the labels and things that are just like the title, if you left that as label 1, I don't really care. What I care about are things that the user interacts with, things that you need in the the drop downs. Okay, if it's something that's going to require programming, it needs to have a good, meaningful, and descriptive element ID and no errors in the code, which essentially means it works. There are times when, like, you have a for loop to do a thing, like when we did the date setup loop, where on the date dropdown for the weather forecast app, where we tried to we did make the dropdown like just the first 5 dates, we had this sort of pre-setup loop. If you use 2 for loops where they can see each other, this is weird. It should be an error. I can never get the errors when I want them to be. If it says something like you've already used this well, let's just say no errors. I can help you if it's something that doesn't seem like an error. Okay, so steps. Find a data set to use. Brainstorm a useful way to use that data set. Like something the user may want. That's never a bad idea. Or just something that is logical. Okay, give the user a choice. Sort through the list. Return all of the elements that qualify for that condition and give them a random output. All right, we've done a ton of those. Okay, look throughout the unit. Okay, so plan a useful way to use the data set and plan screen layouts and prepare for coding, meaning the rest of this document. Okay, step 1, find the data set. Okay, what columns are going to be relevant? What is the app actually going to do? Consider the columns and data. And like I said, I am not going to make you do the design phase in the planning guide. I'm going to let you just start dragging stuff out there and make your screens as you make them, which is, I think, easier. The point of the planning guide is to make things easier, but if it's a pointless step in between, it's not really making it easier. But I do want you to plan out the lists, name them, what it's actually storing. Well, in this case, planning out the variables, which the list you bring in count, and what conditionals you're going to use, essentially what you're checking for. Why can't I make this longer? Whatever. Where you're going to loop, and what actual interactions the user is going to have, feel free to edit this document to a certain extent. If you need extra rows for more event handlers, go ahead and add an extra row to this table in this document. And your main functions with update screen, pretty much guaranteed to be needed. And then the basic rubric, which is just the whatever it's called, instructions. That shouldn't have been a hard word to find. The requirements in grid form with a number valuing each portion. Okay, so again, this is just the first of two documents, but it's the planning one. The other one is the wrap-up written response. And the due date for this document is today. Am I looking at period 4? I am. The due date for this document assignment is today, but you should be done with it in about 30 minutes because you need to get programming. All right. You can always change your mind, and a lot of times about halfway through, you'll have some work done and you'll come ask for help, which I encourage, and it will be clear that you've gone down the wrong path, with the most common mistake being overambitious, and the second most common mistake being underambitious. Okay, let me see if I can find some examples of apps that use lists, and or in a different way than the ones that we have seen a bunch of. Words Hunter, remix. I should dig through old ones. How am I gonna find a good one? Okay, so here. Probably the most common, I don't want to say mistake, but overambitious decision is to use the Netflix list. Okay, the Netflix list is long, and it is, if you're trying to do a list that sorts like something by, in this case, genre, would be an obvious one. The problem is, if you look at the list, the genre list, the actual input is a string, but it's a string with several different words in it. It's a single string with several different words, and you can't really sort by that matching, because the dramas, if you just do dramas, it's not going to show up. If you do dramas, international movies, music, and musicals, you would only find ones that are exactly matched, which this one clearly is not an exact match, although it's mostly a match for that. So there are some difficulties with choosing that particular list. And so, like I said, based on the projects that we've done, the most common guideline for the entire thing for any of the projects, or the most common example that we've done so far throughout the unit, is something that sorts. But there are other ways to use lists, like the ASL translator app uses the list of the American Sign Language alphabet, which only has 2 columns, and one column being the letter and the other column being the image URL string. And the way this app works is it starts with a user's input, and I don't expect something like this from you, but can go through and sort by the user's choices and return the images of sign language, and that's meeting all the requirements. It has lists from the data set. Okay, event handlers. It does have a function. If you are interested in this type of thing, I can put up the share link. But here's the thing, just if you are looking for this project, okay, so I'm going to share this with you. I think there's some cool stuff in here that is not in any of the other lessons. I'll put it over here. And when you go to it, like I said, if you are interested in it, when you go to it, it will go to, or it should just go to sort of the plain app emulator, not directly to App Lab. It should, if it ever opens. But if you want to look at it, you go to Remix. But my issue, or the point is, when you go to Remix, it doesn't carry over. Well, I mean, you can go to View Code, but when you click on Remix, it will create a new project for you, but it won't have the table imported. So if you want to work on it here, it's not, oh, it does for me. I wonder if it will for you. When I remix things, it usually breaks. Anyway, again, nothing breaks when I want it to break. There is that app. You feel free, go ahead and start looking at different, yeah, but go ahead and start. Find a table you like and a table you think will have a useful reason for filtering, and we'll have some more sort of casual discussion of what is possible. But just to be clear, I don't want you to copy this app. It's just another way that we can use lists. Okay. Does anybody have any specific questions or general questions about expectations? Okay, ready, go.